everybody? It's your boy Chaz Pearson, and this is the Outlet Forum with my esteemed co-host Chris Camella. What up, Chris?
Got two words for you, Chaz. Overrate that.
Haliburton does it again in game one of the finals this time. Stun OKC. We'll get into everything that has to do with that great game one that went down in the NBA finals. We'll also get into NBA offseason trades that are coming up. A lot of stuff is starting to blossom on that front. A few stories coming out courtesy of Mark Stein. And we'll also get into the Knicks firing Tom Thibodeau after the Knicks got eliminated this past Sunday by the Indiana Pacers, who are just on an absolute roll right now. But it's a bad week for New York and a great week for the state of Indiana. We'll get into everything that has to do with the Knicks and their firing of their coach as well. And there also seems to be some rumors about KD that we'll get into as well in tonight's show. But Chris, let's start it off right with the Indiana Pacers. Completely stunned the OKC Thunder in game one of the finals. They win 111-110 after a heroic effort last shot by Tyrese Haliburton. Not a three this time, just a simple walk up to the right wing, step back, 2-point shot. Unbelievably, no layup, no three, just a great step back. I forgot it wasn't over Lou Dort. It was over, who was it over, Chris?
Cason Wallace.
Who seemed to be the weakest link for the Thunder and the go-to matchup for them in Cason Wallace, because Siakam just had that height difference over him. But Chris, let's get into everything that happened in that game. How the hell did OKC lose this game by being up by double digits, by 15 points in the fourth quarter, and somehow blow that lead and lose on their home floor? Take it away, man.
Yeah, well, first of all, Indiana, they had a terribly played first half. And we've seen this story before with Indiana. We've been seeing it all postseason long. It shouldn't have even been a stunner at this point. But everybody's saying, OKC's going to roll them, and OKC's going to do this, and OKC's going to do that. Listen, guys, these two teams, well, outside of Alex Caruso, nobody, and Pascal Siakam, nobody has played in an NBA Finals on either of these squads, right? And both Caruso and Siakam have championships. The thing with Indiana, here has been a key to their success in these playoffs, especially in these comeback wins on the road. Hang around. Hang around and hang around. Never let a lead get out of hand. And you saw that. They never let this game really get away from them. I know OKC was up 17 in the fourth quarter, but with Indiana's pace and with their ability to get hot from downtown, it never felt like they were out of the game. And they just kept chipping away, and they kept chipping away, and they got stops. And Nembhard started making threes. Obi Toppin started making threes. Miles Turner made shots. Siakam, on a night that was really forgettable, up to the game-winning shot for Tyrese Haliburton. It was not a great shooting performance for him. Give OKC's defense credit. We said coming into the series that the guards with Caruso and Dort and Cason Wallace, they're going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at Haliburton. But this is what they do. The later the game gets in the fourth quarter, the more chances that they have of coming back and burning you with their clutch shooting. And we saw that, and everybody had a hand in it. Andrew Nembhard, slow start to the game. He had a big fourth quarter. And then it just gets set up where they have a challenge go against them, Chaz, right? They have a challenge that goes against them because they thought Siakam was fouled. It's not. And here's SGA, a shot that he's probably hit 1,000 times. He misses. He boots it. Neesmith comes up with a big rebound. And what do? We're not going to call a timeout. Get it into Haliburton's hands. We don't want OKC to set up a defensive play, to get a stop and hold on for the win. And what did he do? Just a little stop and pop. He got Wallace out of position. He was able to use his length and his size and elevate over him and knock it down. And then with 0.3 left, Caruso tries to throw a lob toward the rim. Miles Turner breaks it up, and that's game. Indiana's ability to hang around and chip away slowly was the difference in this game. That's how they've done it. That's how they did it against New York. That's how they did it against Cleveland. And that's how they did it tonight against Oklahoma City. Job well done by the Pacers. They are this year's cardiac kids, man.
Yeah, man. Here's the thing. They let him hang around, but the Indiana Pacers just played tough all night. And here's the thing also. I don't think that the Indiana Pacers played a great game. I don't think that they
Not by
really
any
did
means.
anything that
17
was
turnovers in the
yeah,
first half, guys.
it's which is way too many to even be in this game of this magnitude, like too many turnovers. You lost the possession battle in the first half, really for the first three quarters, and somehow Obi Toppin, Nimhard, Neesmith, Siakam just hit big timely shots, and the OKC Thunder just missed timely shots. J Dub just was a no show in the second half. Didn't really do much at all, and ultimately, it really just comes down to make or miss shots. And the fact that SGA was able to make a whole lot of really clutch shots in the final couple minutes. Lou Dort hit 3 threes in a row, but when he needed that fourth one to come through, it rimmed in and out. So it was just timely shots. But the Pacers,
And
they just
Chaz,
hung tough. They've just been who they've been all year long, and they only had a 3.6% chance to get into it and to be able to win after being down as much. Like, can we talk a little bit about Haliburton though, please, just real quick? Because he's been, even
floor is
though
yours, Senator.
you said overrate that to start the show, and he's been nothing short of amazing. I don't think. Look, I stand by what I said last week. I don't believe he's a superstar. There's a lot of guys that are stars that are not superstars. I completely disagree with the premise of the conversation that there's 12 to 15 superstars in the NBA. No, there's only about 5 or 6 superstars, and the rest are stars, and then role players from there. But Tyrese Haliburton is a star of stars, and he hits big shots. He is for the moment, and he always seems to come up huge when his team needs it most, especially on the offensive end, because he's just so shifty. So, I mean, the shot that he hit over Cason Wallace, to be able to even be in that position when he was getting hunted game, really all second half long by SGA on the pick and roll, to be able to come up with a shot that big, and for the Pacers to hang around Miles Turner with big shots. I mean, they're just impressive.
Dude, you're absolutely correct. And I wanted to ask you about this. The balance that we thought that OKC was going to have, we talk about the depth and the balance and everything like that. It was more on display from Indiana. 6 in double figures, including Obi Toppin. Say what you guys want about Obi Toppin. I know his career got off to a rough start in New York, but he has found a home with the Pacers. 6 of 9 from downtown, 5-3, 17 points off the bench. Let me ask you this. Is Indiana a deeper team? At least, did they show it for one night over Oklahoma City? Or is this a sign of things to come where the stars for the Thunder are really going to have to lead the way more so than Indiana, who their best player did not have a big offensive night. He had a big offensive moment, but he didn't have a big offensive night. They were the sum of their parts. I just wanted to get your take on that. The depth versus OKC and Indiana.
I think there's no team that's deeper than the OKC Thunder. So let me just start there. There's no team in the NBA, including the Indiana Pacers, that's deeper than the OKC Thunder. They just miss shots and let their foot off the pedal at the end, just like every team has done against the Pacers, because the Pacers are just a cover machine because of the pace that they play with. They can make up so many points in such a short amount of time because they win the possession battle. They play hard when in those final possessions, and they have guys that will make shots. All you need is one of these shots in these comebacks to not go in, to be able to lose one of these comebacks. But for some way, somehow, these shots tend to go in for Neesmith, for Nimhard, for Haliburton, for Siakam. for Turner, for all of them, for some reason. So, I mean,
And it
I
feels
don't think
like,
I don't think it's really depth. It's just timely shots.
no, it is. And what's so unique too, because we've always heard the adage, role players don't play well on the road. They never have, right? You know, when you think about the Lakers, for example, those championship years, the best nights that Robert Horry, Rick Fox, Derek Fisher, Brian Shaw had were at the comfy confines of Staples Center. I mean, granted, Robert Horry did hit some big shots on the road as well, but most of those nights came at home. These dudes for Indiana, they may be young, they may be inexperienced, but they have no fear, dude. And they got cojones for sure. And Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Miles Turner, Obi Toppin, it doesn't matter. It could be OKC, it could be KFC, it could be, any sort of C. They
UFC,
find a way,
yeah.
UFC, NYC, they find a way to make big shots and make contributions on the road. And Andrew Nembhard hit some big time shots and some big free throws too in that fourth quarter. Obi Toppin was great. And that's the thing, that Haliburton is the engine that drives that bus, but it doesn't need to be him that has to do all of the heavy lifting. The way, if you look at OKC, it kind of has to be Shea in a way. As much as I like J-Dub and Chet Holmgren, Chet was not very good tonight offensively. It has to be SGA that does the heavy lifting for them down the stretch. Whereas Indiana could kind of space you out, and they trust 4 or 5 of those guys to go out there and take and make some of those big shots when the time requires it.
Do you know the OKC Thunder didn't have anybody else score over 20 points? Nobody else in the entire game, for that matter,
No.
including the Pacers, scored over 20 points other than SGA. The Pacers won this game with their leading scorer, Siakam, only having 19 points.
Yeah.
You just had a balanced scoring attack. You had 15 from Turner, 10
That's what
from
I'm
Nesmith,
saying.
14 from Haliburton and Nembhard. I mean, we're going to beat this to death because even you had a guy in Obi Toppin that had 17. Like TJ McConnell had 9. I mean, even
I have
Ben
a
Shepherd
comp.
had 5. Like, I just
Yeah. No, the bench
I
was good. I mean, this
understand.
is what.
I,
Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
understand that they're good and that they're deep, but OKC. I mean, if you get no points from Kenrich Williams, you get 6 points from 2 starters in Holmgren and Case and Wallace. That's just a bad night. So I chalk it
It
up to
is.
that. I still got OKC. I had OKC in 5, and this actually might be a blessing in disguise for OKC because they got slapped up at home. And whenever they get slapped up at home, like we saw like
In
after
game
that
one against
Minnesota
Denver.
game,
Yeah.
or even game 1 against Denver, or even when they were down actively by 27 in that game that they came back against Memphis, if they get smacked around, they always respond. So for the
No,
betters
I'm
out
not.
there,
I'm
even though the 9.5 didn't cover for OKC, go ahead and take the 11 for OKC next game. They're gonna respond.
No, I don't doubt that. I had the Thunder in 6. I think that it wouldn't shock anybody if this series goes 6 or 7 games. I am just saying with Indiana, what's so unique about them is they have 5 to 6 guys that they could trust, all 5 of their starters and 1 or 2 of those guys off the bench that are going to make an impact on the offensive end. And tonight, that guy off the bench was not Benedict Mathurin. It wasn't really TJ McConnell. It was Obi Toppin. He was great. Offensively, I'm not trying to compare teams from this perspective. From an offensive balance perspective, Indiana, the 2025 Indiana Pacers in the playoffs remind me a lot of the 04 Detroit Pistons that took out the Lakers in the finals. From the perspective of, we have got 5 to 6 guys. We've got a deep bench. We've got a deep starting lineup. And we've got guys that could give us, any one of them could give us anywhere from 15 to 25 points. Any one of those
Right.
guys. And just like Chauncey Billups was their clutch player down the stretch, Mr. Big Shot, they used to call him, Haliburton would be that role where it's like, I could cruise for 3.5 quarters because I know how, Richard Hamilton or Tayshaun Prince or Rasheed Wallace or any of those guys could step up and make shots. But when the time comes and I need to step up, I'm going to be there. Billups was like that for the Pistons, and I'm seeing a similar characteristic offensively, not defensively, from Tyrese Haliburton. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that comp before we move on.
It's not a bad comp. It It doesn't fit exactly, but I can see exactly where. I mean, you made some, like, you explained it completely perfectly. Yeah, it's a really good comp. I just think that he just hits big shots when it matters most,
He does.
like Mr. Big Shot. But he like Mr. Big Shot would Chauncey Phillips, I should say, would he didn't really create his own shot. It was more so like catch and shoot, or I remember the behind the back against the Pacers in that game 5 from like half court. Tyrese
Yeah.
Halliburton is more of a playmaker than Chauncey. But that's actually, I
Mhm.
mean, just in terms of their shot making, specifically
Yeah.
in that 04 run for Detroit and now this
Yeah.
25 run for Indiana, I they're very, very similar. So I would go
For
with that
sure.
for sure.
And I think both teams are underrated. The only difference is Haliburton has rubbed people the wrong way, whereas no one really ever disrespected Chauncey Billups. They really appreciated his game and the depths that he reached, because early on in his career, he was looking like a bust. And then all of a sudden he became probably one of the best point guards in the league over the past 10, and certainly one of the more accomplished over the next 10 years. So anyway, from an offensive standpoint, from a depth standpoint, from a balance standpoint, that's where I think that comp fits. But Detroit was that 04 Pistons team they were juggernauts defensively. Indiana is not there defensively, but they're a deep team. They play hard, and they always seem to be in every single game. So
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I just really think that this next game 2,
all the
it's
pressure's
going
on
to
the
be
Thunder.
all the pressure is going on them, but I believe that they're going to respond. If game 2 was close, even if the Thunder win, if game 2 was close, man, the best game of the series is probably going to be games 3 and 4. Probably
Swing
game,
game. Yeah.
probably that game 3 rather than game 4, espe- especially if Indiana wins it. Man, and now, I mean, I really wasn't excited for this finals like that, to be honest with you, because I thought the Thunder would go through them like a knife through butter because of the defense. And we saw it in the first half. That was exactly what we expected, even through 3 quarters, even through 3.5 quarters. But somehow, I like the 6 minute mark, the Pacers just decided to turn it on and somehow, some way, got within like we got within 6 points with under 2 minutes left. And that's where they're most comfortable. So I'm looking forward to game 2 on Sunday of
Indiana is now 7-2 on the
next week.
road in these playoffs. 7-2 on the road in these playoffs.
Man,
Just
what a
some food for thought, guys.
what a crazy stat. Well, let's get to the team that they put out last Sunday, Chris, in the New York Knicks, who did something rather shocking. They took one of their best assets in Tom Thibodeau and fired him after reaching the conference finals, after being within 2 games of the NBA finals for the first time in over 26 years, for the first time in the conference finals in over 25 years. I, while I'm disappointed, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that they would actually consider firing him because of his rigidity in terms of playing guys too much, or not really wanting to hear it when certain things were brought to him, not really doing things until it was a little bit too late, like extending his bench. I'll give a little bit more about my thoughts, but it is still shocking to see a guy who coaches his ass off, whether it be in Minnesota, whether it be in Chicago, whether it be in New York now.
Yeah.
I mean, it just sucks for the guy rather than the team, because I can understand the team and its business, but at the end of the day, I just didn't think he deserved it ultimately when it came down to it, even given his rigidity, in my opinion. What say you, Chris?
Yeah, I would say this. I agree with you. It's not shocking, but it is surprising, and it felt like it sucked the wind out of what was a good season for the New York Knicks. A very good tenure, by the way. And I would say that this 5-year stint that Tom Thibodeau had with the Knicks was on par with what Jeff Van Gundy accomplished from 1996 to 2001. And Van Gundy was a little more accomplished because they went to a finals. Strike short in the year, but a finals appearance is a finals appearance. So Tom Thibodeau, I want people to understand this impact just for a second, and not taking anything away from Worldwide West, not taking anything away from Leon Rose. They've done a tremendous job acquiring talent, putting together this roster and everything. New York was a train wreck for a long time. Post Carmelo Anthony, going into the Tom Thibodeau era, they had one playoff series win since 2000. From 2000 to 2019, one series win. A lot of missed playoff, a lot of misses going into the playoffs, a lot of missed free agency signings, a lot of bad trades, a lot of bad draft picks, a lot of bad coaching hires. It was a joke. The Knicks were a running joke for the better part of 20 years. Yeah, for the better part of 20 years, minus that little stint with Mike Woodson coaching, Carmelo Anthony there, and a lot of those vets, Jason Kidd, Amari Stoudemire, Carmelo Anthony, Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, and that didn't last long, Chaez. They were in the playoffs. They won that series against Boston in 2013, basically broke up
by the
Big Three. And then, they lost to Indiana in the second round that year. And then they missed the playoffs, I think, until 2021. They didn't make the playoffs for 8 straight years after that. Tibbs comes in after the COVID season in 2020, right? Brings his rigidity, his structure, his workman-like mentality, which even in a big city like New York with the Stars and Tracy Morgan and Ben Stiller and Timothy Chalamet, the Knicks fans respect hard work and dedication. They could respect what Tibbs brought to the team. And what he brought was stability and an identity and a culture that Leon Rose and Worldwide West surrounded him with, right? 4 out of the 5 years they make the playoffs. They won 3 straight years they won a playoff series. They didn't win 3 playoff series in 20 years. They win 3 in consecutive years. Actually 4, including this year. 4 playoff series, right? They had back-to-back 50-win seasons. And they go to the conference finals, like you said, for the first time since 2000. And you let this guy go less than a week after they get eliminated. Why? The team didn't quit on him. If they would have quit on him, Chaez,
2 days.
They would have been out in the first round.
Not even 48 hours.
Exactly. If the team were to quit on Tibbs, I'll tell you this, they wouldn't have gotten out of the first round at the hands of the Detroit Pistons. Tom Thibodeau deserved at least 1 more year to see if maybe they could build a bench. Maybe they could talk to him and be like, look, I understand how you feel about the rotations and starters and everything. You got to play more guys. You have to. And look what happened when they did play more guys in that Indiana series. They won games. So this is complete nonsense. I don't know if it's Leon Rose, if it's James Dolan. And here's the part that I want you to respond with. There isn't another coach out there right now that is going to be a head and shoulders upgrade above Tom Thibodeau, in my opinion. And there are coaches who are unemployed right now as head coaches that have jewelry and pick them over Tom Thibodeau. I want you to respond to that first and then give me your additional thoughts.
I'm trying to give you like a calculated answer to that because I do think that he's good with his group, but at the same time, I do think that there's been meat on the bone left these last couple years. But it's not really his fault.
Perhaps.
It's really the fault of Leon Rose, who didn't give him the right personnel for him to be able to play the defense that he wanted to play. Like when I saw the Knicks play this year earlier in the season and they were averaging all those points and not playing as good a defense, it concerned me. Yes, they were winning games. Yes, they were playing faster, but I knew ultimately the defense wasn't there the way that it was the year before. And that's really what got them where they needed to be. And ultimately, that's what let them down, even though they got within 2 games of the NBA Finals. That's what let them down in that Pacers series. So I do think that he is the right guy for this group, but this group isn't going to be the same group, I think, moving forward. The core, yes, but I think they're going to add some players and they're going to get somebody who's going to really try and get them over the hump. It depends on who they hire, honestly, Chris. if they hire Mike Malone or Jay Wright or Danny Hurley or
Those are not upgrades
like
over
I
Tibbs.
just
That's the
we don't.
problem.
But
I like
but
Taylor Jenkins.
here
I like
here's the
Michael
thing.
Malone.
Here's the thing,
Those
though,
are
Chris.
not upgrades. I'm
We
sorry.
don't know it. Honestly, it is. When you would have told me if JJ Redick, when he was interviewing for the job, was he an upgrade over Darvin Ham?
Good
I
point.
wouldn't have
Good
said.
point.
I wouldn't have said he was an upgrade. But as soon as the first game, we saw
Let me
what
tell you the
Austin Reeves
difference.
and Rui Hachimura did. They just responded different to different coaching, and that might be what
Sure.
happens with Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr in Golden State. It might be the same thing that happens in Houston with Ime Udoka and
Nick Nurse over Dwayne Casey in Toronto. You could throw that one in there too.
it happens exactly. We just came up with 5 off the top of our heads. It's not that far off from thinking that, and that might be what Leon Rose and World Wide West is thinking.
Yeah. No, all good points. All good points, and you very well could be right. And I agree with you on the rigidity and that Tibbs. This is what's led to. By the way, when Tibbs flames out, it's never pretty. It wasn't pretty in Chicago with the problems with him in the front office. It wasn't pretty in Minnesota, which, by the way, a common denominator between the Minnesota firing and this one is what? Anybody? Bueller? Karl Anthony Towns.
Karl Anthony
Towns did not want to commit to playing hard. And by the way, Jimmy Butler called his big ass out back in 2018 before he got traded to the Philadelphia 76ers, as well as Andrew Wiggins, because that dude did not want to work hard, especially on the defensive end. Tibbs tries to hold these guys accountable to play defense because guess what you have to do to win games? You got to play defense. And Leon Rose wanted his guy Cat, instead of re-signing Hartenstein and pairing him with Mitchell Robinson and maybe keeping Julius Randle. No, we're going to get Karl Anthony Towns. Fine. No problem. They needed a Robin to Brunson's Batman. I totally understand that. But you traded a lot, including a pick, to get Cat, not to mention 4 unprotected first-round picks to get Mikal Bridges. I love Mikal. But I was paying at the time.
They paid that New York tax. I mean, probably at least 2 of those picks came just because he was on the Brooklyn Nets and not the Toronto Raptors, because the Knicks don't trade with them. So that's really, to be honest with you, that's the bad move in all of this. Even though Mikal Bridges was great for them and he's a glue guy, he's a Villanova guy. I mean, you almost would have been better off with keeping Hartenstein and Dante DiVincenzo because those guys ended up in the conference finals as well. But combined on the team, you may have gotten a little further with them. I don't know. It's just, look.
And maybe you could have gotten Cam Johnson for a lesser price, who could do a lot of the same things that Mikal Bridges do. Outside of Bridges is usually more available and Johnson is injury prone. My point being was Tibbs was trying to hold Cat accountable on the defensive end. Why do you think Mitchell Robinson was starting? It wasn't just to shake up the starting lineup. It was the fact that Cat is a liability as a post defender. Charles Barkley once called him and Rudy Gobert 14 feet of useless in a first-round series against the Denver Nuggets because Jokic was busting both their asses. I'm just saying, problem. And, of course, we are in an era of player empowerment. I'm telling you, these are the facts of it. And I think they all contributed to this firing, is what I'm saying.
Cat and AD cannot be the 5 men on the primary group. Those Kentucky, like I say, AD, I bring AD into it. He's catching a stray because he was the same thing for the Lakers. He needed a Dwight Howard and a JaVale McGee behind him in order for his team to win. Same thing with Cat. Cat's not going to be. He needs a Mitchell Robinson or Hardenstein or somebody else behind him in order for them to be successful. So
Rudy Gobert.
It took,
absolutely.
Exactly. It took Tibbs long enough to put Mitchell, and it worked and it helped, but it just took you too long. And by then you were already down 0-2. So he does deserve some culpability in this, Chris. He's not scot-free.
Not saying he didn't, but given how they finished the season, like you said, 2 wins short of an NBA Finals appearance, an Eastern Conference championship. He earned 1 more year to try to build on that success, see if he can match that standard. And if players start quitting on him, you brought up the Darvin Ham situation. What was the difference? The Lakers obviously quit on Darvin Ham. They were not buying what he was selling as a head coach. This team responded. Even if Cat didn't, the team responded. Tibbs is sure his style and the way he wanted to coach defense. Most of them did, is what I'm saying. But you're right. He definitely screwed some things up, not playing the bench enough, not going to a bigger lineup to match up with Indiana's size earlier in the series. That was a problem. But it wasn't Tibbs' fault that those guys, meaning OG and Cat, missed all of those free throws in game one that ultimately cost them game one and set the tone for this series. And it also wasn't his fault when, Karl Anthony Towns was, staring off into space, not paying attention to some of the defensive strategy that he was putting out there during timeouts.
Yeah, player. Cat's not the first guy to get a coach fired. He won't be the last. Add him to the list with Magic Johnson and Gilbert Arenas and
LeBron
and Kobe and Death Stare. You name it. Yeah, I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
But there is a new coach that has been hired recently, even though there's been a firing in New York. Phoenix has come to the conclusion that they have decided to hire Jordan Ott, who was actually on the Lakers coaching staff a couple years ago, I believe, with Darvin Ham staff, his first year, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And Jordan Ott is an lead assistant in Cleveland, and he is going to be taking on the challenge of potentially coaching Devin Booker and KD. But word on the street is KD's price for the Phoenix Suns might be being lowered than what it was initially in this offseason. So, Chris, let's get into this last topic before we get on out of here. There are some trades coming. Yeah. Shams has said it. Wendy has alluded to it. It's pretty clear and apparent, especially with the way basketball is played now, with the smaller market teams both being in the finals, non-luxury tax teams, non-super teams. The league is going to copycat a couple different ways how teams are built. And I believe as well, there are going to be some big trades coming. Not a whole lot of free agency. It's not a big free agency class. Very little teams with cap space as well. I think there's only 3 teams with more than $20 million in cap space. Chris, outside of KD being traded, is there any other move? And I'll get into the KD information a little bit more, but is there any other move that you see potentially coming down the pipe? And don't say Giannis, because we know that that's probably coming as well.
Actually, I was telling you before the show, you don't mention Giannis. Yeah, well, first of all, before I give you my answer, can I get some of these comments?
Oh, yeah,
because they're coming from your Facebook feed. And I wanted to give some of your fans that may not be my fans, but definitely your fans, a shout out. First of all, from Carolyn Moten. I had a feeling they would win even when they were down. She's talking, I think, about Indiana. They did the same thing to New York. Good game. It was a good game. Yeah, Indiana they find a way to hang around, Chaz. That's what we were just talking about. So, yeah, very good point, Carolyn. Robert Martinez, Knicks can't get out of their own way. That's what I'm saying, man. These are the kind of moves where to me, it feels like there's a glass ceiling that this team will not accomplish a lot than what they've already done. And, of course, from your own, Jasmine, good game, but I didn't see that coming. And I think she means the ending. Yes, I didn't see that coming either, Jasmine. I really thought OKC was going to find a way. But you know what, though? We shouldn't be shocked at this point because Cleveland's been doing this. Cleveland's been doing this the entire postseason. They did it in Milwaukee. They did it in Cleveland. And now they've done it. They did it in New York, and now they're doing it to OKC. So, yeah, those are some of the comments. And then I think one in my Instagram. Hallie Bobby Burton ain't certain. Pacers are fakers. OKC in 5.
I still said it as well.
That was good, Diddy. That's my guy named Diddy the Kid, although his name's Adrian, because I don't know if he wants to wear that Diddy moniker right now. And then he also said, but that was a good one. Bad move by the Knicks. Yeah, I mean, that's all I'm saying. It was not a great, prudent move by the New York Knicks. I just thought they should have taken their time and see if they could build the bench and give him one more year just to see where it's at. And then you consider firing him.
Man.
Okay, back to your question. Brooklyn. Anything Brooklyn does. Brooklyn, I think, will be a possible needle mover because I think they're interested in having a garage sale this summer. It is
Like a
spring
third
cleaning right
team?
now. Everything is
Like
for
you have
sale.
them as like a main team or
No,
like a facilitator between a big trade?
I think they have pieces on that roster that could be difference makers, particularly Cam Johnson. And they also have a late lottery pick. They're trying to move up in the lottery, right? So they're trying to package off, I think, the number 19 pick with Cam Johnson in order to, I think, move into the top 5 or top 6 in the lottery. Chaz, I don't know off the top of my head, where are they picking? Are they picking like 7 or something? Or they're not in the top 4, I know that. But they don't have a super high lottery pick this year, if I'm correct on that. So from what I've heard, they're trying to trade swingman Cam Johnson, who I really like, stuffs the stat sheet, is a little injury prone, but he can knock down threes. He can defend multiple. They're at number 8. So they're trying to package off, I think, Cam, as well as I think they have the 19th pick. I saw something about 19 where they're
and
trying to get.
27.
Yeah, so they're trying to pack and 27. So they're trying to package off those two pieces to move up. So I think that could be
Holy
a
shit,
big
and
difference maker
26.
for a
They
team.
got 4 picks in the first round,
Yeah.
8, 19,
Yeah.
26, and 27. So
look for them, as well as they also have a very good and talented athletic center in Nick Claxton. Nick Claxton just signed a big extension last summer. He's a year into that. He has 3 years remaining on that deal, which means that could be a pretty penny as far as a trade package in order to land Nick Claxton. And I know the Lakers are very high on Nick Claxton. They're also high on Walker Kessler and a couple of these other, highly touted centers. I would forget about Miles Turner at this point. I don't think he's going to leave Indiana. If he does, Lakers, I don't think can afford him.
can't afford anybody.
So I look at Brooklyn in exactly those 2 particular guys, though, as well as those picks, could find themselves as major difference makers, either as part of a third team or just straight up. Those guys can be difference makers on the right roster. But yeah, it's not as sexy, but I think those guys can move a needle for a team. And I think Brooklyn in general could be a strong supporting character. They could be like Tom Sizemore in Saving Private Ryan. He's not the lead, but a strong supporting character in this NBA offseason. R.I.P. Tom Sizemore.
Always a good movie reference for my man Carmelo. Yeah, man. I like the Brooklyn nod. But I think a big name that could be moved that we're not expecting, honestly, other than KD and Giannis. Um, I really honestly think that the Heat could come off Bam Adebayo. He might be involved. He might be involved in a trade. Maybe these are just DeAndre Ayton is a name that I've heard be thrown around. Could the Lakers possibly trade for him? I've heard DeMar DeRozan as well. So there are some. I don't think that there's any superstars. I think the Clippers are going to stand pat with, James Harden and Kawhi. I don't think Paul George is going anywhere. Maxey and Embiid, they're all staying put. Obviously,
Philly's screwed. Philly has to rebuild those guys. Those guys' trade value.
They just need those guys on the floor so that way they can actually play.
Yeah. But Philly is screwed right now. They have to run it back. A lot of these teams are going to have to run it back. I'm sorry to say. Unless you're going to make a big, bold move. Like the Clippers, for example, there's all this talk about LaMelo Ball or Drew Holiday. Chaz, I outside of breaking off some of the core that seems to complement each other, how do you even make that work? I mean, are the Celtics going to want to take out Norman Powell in order to get rid of Drew Holiday? I don't think so.
I do think that Derek White is out of Boston. Like that's the guy you have to trade, not Drew Holiday.
Yeah, maybe.
Because Derek White starts with Drew Holiday and has immense value as well.
Well, he's younger, more experienced, very good defender, good 3-point shooter, battle-tested, championship ring. Yeah, that's a guy, that's a guy the Lakers should have gotten.
But the most intriguing one is KD. I really I want to see where KD gets traded because I want to see how his career ends. This is the last stop for KD. Whatever, when he gets traded, it'll be the last team that he plays for. He's 37. I don't think he probably wants to move. Chris Paul actually talked about on the Pat McAfee show how his kids are in LA
he wants to
come back to LA. Mm-hmm. So I do think, this is a free agent signing, not really a trade. in Chris Paul's case, but I do think that he could end up on the Lakers. But I'm really just interested to see where KD ends up. Is it for a contender? Is it for, you know, an up and coming team like Houston? Like where is KD really going? Or is he going to end his days on a bad team? You know, it's not like he has a no trade clause like Bradley Beal. So it's just
And I think there's 2 years left on that contract, right?
yeah.
2 years. Because he came to Phoenix when it was 4 years, and he's done 2 whole seasons there. So he finished up the 23 season, whole 24, whole 25. And when he got there, that 4-year extension was kicking in the 23-24 season. So, yeah, he's got 2 years left on it.
Actually 1 year.
You know, if Milwaukee
Actually 1 year, Chris.
somehow – is
1
it
year, and
only
then
1
he's
year?
an unrestricted
okay.
free agent.
Is it a player option?
No, he's just
It's not a player option?
this is the last year of his 4-year extension with Brooklyn that he signed.
I stand corrected, brother. I know you've got like 3 screens over there in front of you, so I was like, help me out over here. Yeah, help me out over here. No, yeah, KD. You know, I don't know where he's going to end up. You know, I think it's one of those It's one of those things where you got to put him into an environment where it makes sense, where he doesn't have to be the straight up leader, but he could just go out there and hoop and be really the best number 2 option anywhere. Minnesota makes a lot of sense, I think. And considering Minnesota may end up losing some key pieces, I don't know what the future is with Naz Reid. Julius Randle, the question is, are they going to want to re-sign Julius Randle, give him a 3 or 4-year deal, even though he played really well for them the last months of the season, including the playoffs? I'm not so sure. And Naz Reid is also going to opt out of that $15 million contract because he's going to probably want to start somewhere. So how does that whole thing work with Minnesota? Unless they consider trading a Jaden McDaniels, unless they consider trying to offload Rudy Gobert and hoping Phoenix takes that on. And the thing is, you have to ask yourself, if you're Phoenix, what the hell do you want in return for Kevin Durant? Do you want picks? Do you want young assets? Because here's the other thing. You can get those things, but you're also going to need to take on some salary as well. Here's the problem with the Kevin Durant situation. Now that you told me he's an expiring contract, that's going to be not a big haul. They're not going to recoup what they lost when they got him from Brooklyn. So they're going to need to maybe bite the bullet a little bit, because he's the only guy that you could get something of value for. You're not going to get it. You're obviously not going to trade Booker, and you're not going to get much of value from Bradley Beal, because nobody wants Bradley Beal. Nobody wants to take on that contract. Bradley Beal right now is Russell Westbrook 4 years ago with that contract. 2 years. Well, but Lakers traded for him in 21. So where that contract was sort of, So maybe, So
it's like more so in terms of caliber player.
But my point is, but I'm talking about contract wise, a toxic situation, an injury prone guy. Russ wasn't injury prone, but it's like you're paying this dude a lot of money and he's not really the same player anymore. So it's got to be Durant. And that's where Phoenix is stuck between a rock and a hard place. So where do you think he ends up?
Beal or Durant?
No, KD. Yeah, Durant.
Man, if he is going to be traded, I don't think he ends up here. I do think Toronto is a sneaky team that's going to be active this year.
Yeah.
San Antonio, I think Orlando's going to be very active as well. San Antonio is going to be very active, I think also, but ultimately is really going to come down to where KD wants to play. For some reason, Houston it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Houston, but it makes a whole lot of sense for KD. So there's no perfect situation. Wherever he goes, honestly, Miami actually makes a little bit of sense. But I don't think they have space and assets or anything like that. So
then that ruins your Bam Adebayo.
Well, no, I mean,
you're not going to get KD.
No, of course not. But if you could pair KD with Bam and Tyler Hero and get to replace Jimmy Butler, but you're going to have to give up somebody probably like Tyler Hero for KD. So I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. That's why I'm not a GM, and here's one point I want to say. Before everybody hits their trade machine and hops on their podcast and talk about offseason trades, even us, I like to look at things from the perspective of we don't know what the full board is that we see or that the GMs are seeing. So when we're saying, oh,
Yeah.
they made this move or they could have done this or they let go of this guy, we don't know what else they had coming down the pipe that either didn't turn out or something that was two moves later that they see the board on that didn't pan out, or something that they decided to turn away from. Like, we don't see the full board that these other 30 GMs do, or president of basketball operations. So I just want to make that point for those of us that are watching this show, other shows, media members. We don't see the full board. So saying,
No, we don't.
criticizing and this and
We're
that and
speculating.
speculating.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I take it with a grain of salt, because hell, if I knew, I would tell you guys, but I don't know, and there is no
I
perfect
mean, can I
situation for
tell you?
KD.
Oh, absolutely. And I throw the Spurs in there because the Spurs have a foundation in place with Fox and obviously Victor Wembanyama, where they could now part ways with some of that young talent, the Keldon Johnsons, the Devin Vassell's, gulp, maybe, might I even say Stephen Castle. However, if KD has an expiring contract, Spurs might not need to give up as much of that young talent or as much of those picks. You know what I'm saying? Where where they would have to get fleeced in order to get Kevin Durant. And now it's just him and Wembanyama and Fox. But I want to say this as well. Some of these posts, like when people are reposting or reaggregating Bobby Marks saying Lakers are aggressively shopping for a center. Yeah, no shit. They're aggressively shopping for a center. This is news, guys. We've been knowing. They fucking knew that they needed a center back in February, which is why they traded for Mark Williams in the first place. This is news. Be original. Damn, all these freaking aggregators, man. Like, you guys are, trying to be so freaking obvious, with all your stuff, and they're going after a center. No shit. Gosh, did you flunk out of med school in
It's
order to figure
interesting
that
though,
out,
Chris, because
moron?
it's like you said,
Okay,
it's
but I
spec
wanted to
it,
say that because it's
it
so
it's
fucking
spe-
annoying.
it's speculation. Just like you said, that's what we do, and that's what fans and other members of other teams and media and beat writers do. They speculate on what they think and what they hear. So, and it's a to-
This
and it's
hits
a
home for
topic
me.
that people care about. You see the Lakers shit up in my. I want to know who the Lakers are getting for a center as
Absolutely.
well. So, that's it.
You're talking to a guy that broke stories, brother. I did this 8 years back in the Dodger offseason. I was the one who was first on the Kenley Jansen re-signing. I was the first on the Justin Turner re-signing, and I was almost first on the Yu Darvish acquisition and the trade deadline in 2017 while I was working at my bank job. I almost broke that story too. Freaking Ken Rosenthal was like 2 minutes ahead of me before he broke the story. I was on that. So this hits home for me because I actually did the work to cultivate sources in order to break news. I did that, and I still got dumped on because I got the Bryce
What's your
Harper
point, bro?
situation thing wrong.
I'm. What's your point?
My point is these reaggregators are just they're really not breaking any news on anything. That's the problem. They're stating the obvious, and they're doing it by
Bro,
reposting what a real journalist or somebody with real sources did. And it pisses me off sometimes, is what I'm saying.
okay.
And I'm not saying you, Chaz. I'm
Yeah,
not
I know
saying
you're not
you.
saying me.
I'm
I'm
just
not a fucking
saying in
aggregator,
general.
but I'm just like, are we really gonna sit here and cry about the trolls on Twitter and the people that are in
No, you're not
and
an
the people
aggregator. You're an
and the
aggravator.
people that are on people's comments telling people to, like, hey, well,
Dude, I'm just saying be original, Laker fans. Be original, sports fans. Don't start stating the obvious. The Lakers are aggressively pursuing a center. Okay, great. Duh.
I'm sure Bobby Marks. I'm
We
sure
knew that
Bobby
shit.
Marks had more to say than just that, but that was the headline, I'm sure. On that note,
Yeah, you're right.
we'll
That
go ahead.
wasn't to you. That was to the.
On that note, we appreciate you guys tapping into the outlet forum. You guys know where to get at is every week. This week we did a Thursday show because we wanted to do something after the game. Next week's show will be on Wednesday, following game 3 of the NBA Finals. So we'll see who's up 2-1 in the series by next Wednesday. Chris, where can I follow you, my man?
could always follow me on Twitter at Chris_Camello. You could follow me on Instagram at CCamello1. Be sure to follow us on our YouTube, on our Twitter, and our Instagram at The Outlet Forum. That's at The Outlet Forum. Game 2, not till Sunday. So enjoy the Stanley Cup Finals and the Dodgers in St. Louis in the meantime.
It's almost that time, Chris. Almost back to talking baseball. And we're going to be getting into a whole lot of things. Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, everything going on in the MLB once these NBA finals conclude. And obviously, we're a basketball show, so we'll get into everything that's going on with the NBA draft and leading into trades and signings and everything like that. Also, Aaron Rodgers going to be officially a Steeler by the time we talk next week. So we'll get into a little bit of that coming up in the next couple weeks. But we appreciate you guys tapping in with us. Outlet Forum. Follow us, subscribe to our YouTube, follow us. You guys know what it is. We'll see you guys next week on Wednesday evening after game 3.